We continue in Hebrews 3. Yesterday I left you again with this big idea that we find developing here, contrasting the church today, or us today following Jesus, with the Hebrews coming out of Egypt. And they ended up with hardened hearts to God. And the question I asked, and we'll continue to ask today, is how do we not get a hardened heart? In a world that is hard, in a world that is chaotic, in a world that's increasingly angry and polarized, how do we cultivate joy and winsomeness and trust? How do we rest in God? So if we unpack what's going on in Hebrews chapter 3, we see that there's a sense in which the Jews failed to leave Egypt. They left it physically, but Egypt is sort of not just a country, but it's a metaphor for certain kinds of power and certain kinds of technology and certain kinds of material abundance. And they don't leave that very well. And so when they're wandering around in the desert, they're actually going to keep wishing that they could go back to Egypt. And they have not learned to stop looking backwards and just put their faith in Christ, in God, and to trust in Him. So we get reminded of all of this. It continues to play out in Hebrews chapter 3, at the end of Hebrews chapter 3. So see to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God, but encourage one another daily as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ, if indeed we hold firmly till the end our original conviction. As has been said, today if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion. Who were they who heard and rebelled? Were they not those Moses led out of Egypt, and with whom He was angry for 40 years? Was it not with those who sinned, whose bodies perished in the wilderness? And to whom did God swear that they would never enter His rest, if not those who disobeyed? So we see that they were not able to enter because of their unbelief. So again, the whole text is set up to just say to me, we cannot let our hearts grow hard. We cannot embrace sin. It develops a callus around us. It takes us away from the model of Jesus. And just as they then could not enter His rest, go into the promised land, because they did not do what they were supposed to do, so we do not get to enter His rest, which is heaven. So does this mean we can lose our salvation? Still not ready to take that question on. I simply want to let the text speak for itself. And there is an implied threat here in this text. And it implies that we can run into the anger of God. The anger of God, to be clear, is not like our anger. It should be unnerving for us to hear about the anger of God. It gets directed at the Jews, who end up spending 40 years in the wilderness. When I get angry, when you get angry, we often do not act righteously or think clearly. That's not the case with God. But we need to understand, as we understand that the anger of God is not like our anger. It's altogether always righteous. But we need to understand we don't want to be recipients of the anger of God. And the big message here in Hebrews chapter 3 is we can't let our heart grow hard. So tomorrow, I'm going to look at a few of the ways we keep our heart from growing hard. Have a good day.